Hello, how are you? Um, it's been a few weeks, so I wanted to get on here and hopefully everyone in the United States had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Um, I hope you were able to spend it with family and friends and that you had a lot of wonderful food. In any case, now we're into the Christmas season and it's usually hectic. So I guess when it starts getting stressful and hectic, if it does for you, if it's not always that way, but seems to be. Just remember what it's all about, especially in this economic climate. Try not to overextend yourself financially, because the people that love you for you, and it's more about spending time and being as happy as possible. So you do you. But I hope you have a wonderful season in the process. I know for me, I'm still trying to get into the mood. It just snuck up on me. And usually I'm very Christmas oriented. I love Christmas season. I love my lights. Oh my God, I could sit for hours just listening to Christmas music and all the lights out in the house except for my Christmas tree and my Christmas lights. I don't know. I'm weird. It makes me happy. It's all right. I own it. In any case, I wanted to talk really quick about discernment, intuition, making choices, because sometimes we are faced with some difficult choices in life, and it's hard sometimes to discern what is the appropriate path, and sometimes we get stuck or perceived to be stuck, because stuck is a form of illusion, because there's always a choice that can be made, an action that can be taken, but sometimes we get ourselves in a self-imposed prison and feel like we're stuck when we're actually not, but we just don't know how to think our way out of it sometimes, or we think ourselves into knots, if you will. So that's not for everyone, but in any case. All right, so we've talked a little bit in the past about intuition, and that is our mind taking in information that we're not always consciously aware of, okay? So our conscious mind, or our mindfulness, like I've said in the past, is roughly about 20% of everything that's going on around you, okay? It might even be a lot less than that, quite truthfully. I don't remember the actual statistic, but we're not as typically observant as maybe we think we are sometimes. And also sometimes our focus is on certain things that we're being aware of and observant about, but we're not taking in everything. Our brain, however, is, okay? So in any case, it's paying attention to how do I feel in a given moment emotionally? How does that present in my body, right? I read this awesome meme that says, if we listen to our body when it whispers, we never have to hear it scream, right? So that's just a gentle way of saying be mindful. We feel things for a reason, okay? Whether that's physically, emotionally, it doesn't always mean the reason we think it is. However, it's there for a reason to bring our attention to it so that we can do something, okay? Take action of some sort, whether that's to change our lives, change our situation, change something, right? So the more aware we can be of those things, the better off we are, all right? Because then we can take action when it's an appropriate time to take it and keep ourselves on track with our goals or whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish in life. And most of our goals revolve around what's going to make me happy, okay? So sometimes what makes me happy isn't going to make someone else happy. And sorry, I just came in from outside. I took the dog out and it's raining. It's gross out. In any case, it gave me the sniffles. So sorry. So part of life's purpose and goals is what makes me happy. And that can vary depending on the time in life you are at, okay? So maybe at 17, we were really, really happy with someone who was on the same wavelength as us, that we had similar goals and we had this and that in common, or friends that, really made us feel good, right? And sometimes, if we're really, really lucky, we have those same people in our lives 40 years later. Other times, not so much. Or maybe they're still in our lives, but they don't make us happy anymore, okay? And depending on the belief systems we're raised with or how we internalize our experiences, we may feel like we don't have a choice, or we're stuck in those scenarios with those people, or with those situations. It doesn't even have to be about people. It could be about, I don't know, maybe a job that really, really served us at one time or for a long time, and now it just doesn't make us happy anymore, okay? We change. Our environment changes. We cannot change other people, but we absolutely do change as human beings. Hopefully we evolve and we grow and we continue to become more or better, or whatever the case may be. And when that happens, sometimes we outgrow relationships or scenarios or situations. And those are really, really hard things to act on, because most people don't ever want to hurt other people. Or maybe a scenario fuels our ego. Okay, it makes us feel good when we can help people. However, if we're the only one helping and then we feel like no one understands us, or we're not getting our needs met in a job, or in a scenario, whatever that may play out to be for you, how are you loving yourself? Okay. And part of self-love is being aware of, what are my needs, or what are my desires, and what makes me happy, okay? And then the discernment is, am I acting with integrity, okay? Is my intention really to be happy without maliciously hurting other people? But sometimes we do have to hurt people. And I don't mean that physically or things like that. It's just that perfect example. I was dealing with a teenager one time, and they had this person who was really interested in them, and they didn't feel the same way about the person. But then the person threatened that, well, if you don't love me the way I love you, I'm gonna kill myself. So they felt obligated to pretend to care about them the same way, because they didn't want to feel guilty if this person harmed themselves. That's manipulation 101. It's harmful. It's it's overstepping major boundaries. When people make you feel obligated to be something in their lives that you aren't comfortable being, that's a boundary. That's an issue. That's control. Okay? And depending on who you are as a human, if you are someone who truly cares about people and never wants to see someone hurt, you might be easily manipulated in that area, right? And then sometimes people will use belief systems to strengthen that idea, right? Like, well, you said this, or you did this, and now this is where we're at, so you owe me, or you have to do this, or whatever the case may be. Okay, it's different from person to person. And I'm just using, like I've said in the past, I use relationships because those are the ones we can typically wrap our heads around more, because they tend to be more triggering for us, okay? So, but it can play out, like I said, it could be a job. And maybe the boss says to you, well, you can't quit because I would have hired that person instead of you, and then I wouldn't be in this position, or this time of year you can't leave me and leave me hanging, blah, blah, blah. There's all kinds of things that people can say to try and get their needs met. At the end of the day, it's up to you to be discerning as to, are they what they're saying, does it ring true, in the sense that, yes, that's fair and equitable, that's reciprocity, or are they getting more out of it than I am? And am I serving myself here? And that's balance, right? And self-love. So it's important to kind of consider that, consider all aspects when making those types of choices, especially the life-altering ones. And, when we're making discernments with regards to other people, like if someone asks for money and they need a loan or something like that, then when we're trying to problem solve or think of, okay, can I do this or does this make sense? We need to look at briefly worst case scenario. So I always say to people, don't ever lend money unless you're willing to not get it back, because someone's not going to ask for money if they're not struggling. And there's no judgment there, because God knows I've been there myself in life. I think most people, you live long enough, you have too. Hopefully that is not cyclical and we can learn from those lessons and then set ourselves up for success in the future. But lessons do repeat until we learn them, right? That aside, I always try to put too much in these videos. In any case, discernment would be, okay, worst case scenario, they can't pay me back, or they can't pay me back by the time I would need it back. So is this something I can do? Whatever the case may be. But don't get stuck there, because it's easy. Our brains love to fill in the gaps, and then it loves to go down the rabbit hole, right? So if you think of, well, they're probably not going to pay me back because they're unreliable and they've done this to me in the past and and then we end up emotionally triggering ourselves over something that never even took place in the moment, right? Getting mad over the fact that they haven't paid us back when we haven't even lent them the money yet. So be mindful, because if we're not paying attention to our thoughts will run the show. I'm doing a video. So that's something, sorry, my son just came downstairs. So that's something that we really want to pay attention to, okay? And we can't be mindful 24/7, but we do want to be aware of those things. And what are those thoughts that come up when scenarios come up? Because that is an indication of what our belief systems are. So with regards to controls and what people tell us or what we tell ourselves, when left unchallenged, those thoughts, when repetitive, are going to filter down and feed a belief system, okay? And our belief system is the filter in which we engage our world through, okay? So what I mean by that is if someone tells us, you owe me, or you're obligated, or say something even simpler, like you're stupid, or you tell yourself, oh yeah, that's me, I'm dumb. Even if you're kidding around, if you repeat it enough, it's going to filter down into a belief system that's going to impact choices that you make in your life. So it's really important to be mindful of the things that we tell ourselves. And sometimes we don't realize that until the back end, if you will. So maybe we're presented with a choice and our first automatic thought is, I can't do that, I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough to do that, or whatever the case may be. If we're being mindful at that point, then we're able to challenge that thought, that belief system, and push back on it or reframe it and say, well, that's not true. Maybe I'm afraid, or maybe I'm worried or struggling, but that doesn't mean I can't, right? So whenever you use that type of all or nothing language with yourself, be mindful of that, because it's not true, okay? And fear and being stuck, those are illusions for the most part. I mean, there are certain things that we should be afraid of, like we shouldn't put our lives at risk by playing in traffic, because that can put our lives at risk, and therefore that's a legitimate fear. But most things that we're afraid of, or most things that we, when we feel stuck or whatever, it's an illusion. If someone else is not afraid of something that we're afraid of, then that means there's the opportunity to not be afraid of it ourselves. And for some reason, and that's where we can think back to our developmental stages as to, why do I believe this, or why do I fear this, or why do I feel that I'm obligated to do this, or whatever the case may be, okay? And a lot of those things are instilled in us as we're being raised. We're being raised, right? So our parents are trying to do right by us by instilling belief systems in us that help us instill value systems that can help us navigate life through. But at some point, It's through paying attention. Am I happy? Am I on the path that serves me and my highest good? We then can look back and say, when did I develop this behavioral pattern? Or when did I develop this belief system? And why? And then we can change it. And that's where change can happen. That's where evolution happens, where we evolve as human beings. And those are things that help us indicate, are we on the right track in our lives? Am I serving my soul, right? Because when we are off track with our purpose and what makes us truly happy, that can present as other negative aspects like depression or anxiety. It's all connected, mind, body, spirit. When one is off, it's going to impact the other two. So the more we can be aware of that, trace it back, make the corrections or the changes that we need to put ourselves on the path that we need to be on. And that's not always going to align with other people. So sometimes as much as it hurts, we might have to hurt somebody. But as long as the intention is to do right by them, yourself, and all involved, because we're only going to be as good for other people as we are to ourselves, right? So it's being aware of that and trying to make choices that are going to be for the highest good of all involved, but not to the point where you have to be responsible for other people's happiness, because that's never how it's meant to be. People are responsible for their own happiness. And if they put that on you, then that's them trying to get a need met. And it's easy to get sucked into that depending on your personality style, how sensitive you are to other people, and maybe even how you were raised. Sometimes people are raised to believe that they have to be the problem solver, or they have to earn love to some degree. And that presents as codependency in adulthood, where I have to be the problem solver in this situation, or I'm the one that everyone comes to. But then where do I go? Right? Who hears me? Because oftentimes those people that are stoic and feel like they're the ones that solve everything, or even feel like they have to because maybe that was put on them, those are the ones that oftentimes feel disconnected or unheard or misunderstood or not understood at all. So again, just little pieces to help with understanding that. But when you're making decisions, it's very important to think of all scenarios. And sometimes, because decisions, especially when they impact us, are so subjective, it helps when we can remove ourselves from the scenario to make sure that we're making choices not out of ego, but out of highest good, right? So if I'm not sure what the right choice is for me, I might install, I should say, someone else into that scenario in my mind, right? I'm thinking it through and put someone else that I might care about into that scenario, but take myself out of it. And would I still come to that same outcome? You know, because oftentimes we tell people we care about certain things, like, no, you did your best and you did an awesome job. But when it's us, we might be overly critical, right? Well, that's all things that, that come from our belief systems. You in there slamming doors.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, hon. Again, my sonny's in the kitchen. I'm going to make dinner in a couple minutes, so don't eat anything. All right. Again, I apologize. I'm getting sidetracked here, but that's what I wanted to come on here. When you're thinking worst case scenarios, don't go down the rabbit hole, okay? Discernment is not the same as being judgy, but it's easy for us to be judgy because discernment is, quick example, is there enough water in that pool for me to safely dive in without injuring myself? Judgment might be, there's not enough water in that pool. I wonder if these people struggle with money or if they're just poor, right? That's a judgment. And it's usually an assumption. Judgments tend to be assumptions. Discernments are not judgy, but help us with making decisions, okay? So keep that in mind. With regards to making life-altering choices, it's important to really make the discernments of what is in my highest good. Am I sometimes, again, people may not like the choices we make, but as long as you're not purposely going out of your way to hurt anyone and you're trying to consider people's feelings, sometimes we have to make the tough choices, depending on what it is. Your boss might not like if you have to leave or the timing of your departure. However, how does that play out in your life? And is it in the long run going to be for the best? Okay. So hopefully that helps. It was something that was kind of coming up today for me with work and all, and I just had the itch to come on here and talk about it a little bit, because I know, especially in the holiday season, people are more emotionally triggered because of relationships and situations. And then, of course, with the economic climate, there's a lot of stress with regards to money and maybe jobs and things like that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. The important thing at the end of the day is to nurture yourself, because you are a whole and complete human being and soul, and you deserve love. We all do, okay? So be there for yourself. Care about what makes you happy, okay? We can't always get there right away, but we got to put some thought and action into it, okay? And love the people that love you back, because the ones that truly love you for you, they're not going to care so much about the gift you give them or things like that, because they're going to care more about just having you in their life, okay? So try and take some of the pressure off with the holidays. And I don't know, just sending you light, love, peace, hope for a beautiful future and a wonderful holiday season, okay? All right, and I'll probably get on here again before Christmas, but in the meantime, just know that I'm sending you light, okay? All right, bye.